Well, hey everyone, welcome back to the Guidebook Greenroom. Nathan and I wore green today. And we are continuing our event planning mini series. We are joined by another amazing guest ready to share a perspective. Gretchen, great to see you. Could you please introduce yourself and tell us about the events you have coming up?
Sure. Thanks for having me. So my name's Gretchen DiMarco, and I am the Vice President of Operations at the Princeton Mercer Regional Chamber of Commerce. We are a Chamber of Commerce located in central New Jersey, the largest regional chamber in the state with about 1,200 members. We do about 93 events every calendar year, one of which is the New Jersey Conference for Women, which is the largest women's conference in the state at 700 attendees. So we are a very busy organization, but we love every minute of it.
That's amazing. That's a lot of events.
Mm-hmm.
Are they all kind of similar in size and scale? I'd love to kind of get an understanding of how do you pace out that volume of events, and how do you set goals and really define your calendar and the purpose of all of those events?
So our calendar is entirely based on our membership. We're a membership or association, and we are here to meet the needs of our members. Our events range from, as I said, the New Jersey Conference for Women that has 700 attendees, down to smaller business roundtables, new member orientations. Those might be, 20 or 25 folks. And then in between, we have the Central New Jersey Real Estate Forecast that brings together everyone who is in the business of real estate. So not just realtors, but developers, attorneys, people who do title work, et cetera. And all of our events grew from our members saying, hey, what would be great? For example, our Women in Business Alliance that started the Conference for Women, it began 12 years ago with just a few female business leaders. They were bankers that said, we need a space in this community for female business leaders to come together. Mm-hmm. They weren't looking for a formal program. They just wanted to get everyone together. So a small cocktail party was planned. It went out to the community, and 150 female business leaders showed up.
Wow.
So that morphed into, our Women in Business Alliance now hosts 5 different events a year, including educational events, networking events. We do an awards program. But really, when our members come to us and say, what would be great? We need to connect over this. That's our role as a chamber, is we pull it together. We have a great staff team of 7 people, and each staff member has their own portfolio of programs. So I do the Women in Business Alliance, the legislative public policy programs. I also do our signature events, which are your Chamber of Commerce staples, your annual business dinner, your golf outing, things like that. We also have programs just for nonprofits. I mentioned the real estate program. We have a young professionals program as well. So each of our senior leadership takes a section of that and is responsible for providing the programming that meets the needs of that constituency within the chamber.
That's incredible. I am so impressed by all the different parts of your community that you serve. And even more so, I love that people are coming to you and saying, hey, this is what we want. And you're really responding to and serving the needs of your community in that way, right? It's a collaborative relationship. I'd love to hear more about kind of trends over the past few years. Have you noticed any changes in those community needs, or maybe the types of events people are looking for?
I will say, it's probably pretty trite to say that the pandemic changed things for us.
Right.
I mean, it's certainly opened up the idea of virtual events, and those were very helpful to us throughout the pandemic. We actually have kept a few virtual events. We do a business before business breakfast that has sort of a loyal following of about 40 to 50 people who just want to, they don't want to get up, they don't want to get dressed, they don't want to put their pajamas on. They want to, just hang out over coffee, meet each other, etc. So our business before business, we've kept virtual, but we have everything else has moved. We're back in person. Our numbers have trended up, and our community has realized that if you want to be out and engaged in the business community, you have to come out and engage in the business community again. That said, I will say we have had to realign the timing of our programs as well as our content. Back when our members were in their offices 40 to 60 hours a week, there was a lot less pressure to have draw for an event because people wanted an excuse to get out of the office.
Right.
They would come to the opening of an envelope because we can get out of the office. Now, well, I'm only in the office Tuesdays and Thursdays. And because I'm only in the office physically Tuesdays and Thursdays, you better make it worth my while to leave my office during one of those 2 days to come to an event. Or if you're going to have your event on Monday, Wednesday, or Friday, you better make it worth my while to get up, get dressed, and get out of the office. So there's a lot more, not to say that we haven't always been extremely intentional in our programming with learning outcomes. And, we want, every time we go into an event, we know our attendees are going to come away with something, whether it's a contact, a network, new information, etc. But I would say since the shift in just physical working space, that has put a lot more pressure on us to really make every single event worth people's while.
And, you're sort of speaking to a few different challenges there. And I'm curious, with that volume of events you're running and the kind of landscape now that you're operating in with, being more intentional, have you noticed, are you still organizing more and more events? Is your calendar growing? What kind of other challenges are you facing within that?
So our calendar is growing. We were at 84 events last year, and I think we've added about 10 this year, and it's more requests. I will say that the questions that we're getting and the purposes of coming together have changed. For example, our nonprofit program, we have about 150 nonprofit members, and those meetings were always very education based, and always also opportunities for the nonprofit community to connect with the business community, which obviously is their donor base. Now, considering the volatility in the nonprofit space, the level of uncertainty that's happening in the nonprofit space, those groups have said, we don't necessarily need education. They need more social contact. They need more, allyship and opportunities to come together and commiserate and problem solve with one another. We're dealing with this. How are you dealing with it? So the nature of those events have changed a little bit just in terms of what people want to talk about.
And just kind of thinking about challenges to you and your team, you are running a lot of events, and there is a level of dynamism that you need when you're kind of talking about some of those changes and the evolving audience and everything like that. Like, how do you operate as a team when you're thinking about the challenging landscape? Like, how does that impact you as a unit? And have you changed the way in which you work together in the sort of recent years?
So I would say, we work together as a team of 7. We're in the nonprofit space. So a lot of people don't realize a Chamber of Commerce is a nonprofit organization. We operate in an all hands on deck matter. So it's always, there's never an opportunity to say, oh, that's not my event, so that's not my thing. Cooperation between our team and collaboration is critical. In our different program areas, we have a lot of topics that are cross-relevant. For example, we just did a great program last week with our real estate alliance to talk about affordable housing, which in New Jersey is a huge issue. Well, it's also a legislative issue. So once the real estate, group, that programming group says, we want to do a program about affordable housing, I have to then go talk to the legislative group and say, okay, that's off limits as a topic for our next event. So we want to avoid stepping on each other's toes in terms of programming topics, but also cross promote, because our legislative audience might not always be paying attention to what our real estate group is doing. So we also want to say, segment our audience to the point where our communications are going directly to the right audience, but also recognize when there are topics that might be of interest to another audience, and how do we cross promote and bring those two communities together.
That's a great point of kind of responsibility sharing to be best serving all of your communities. And Nathan and I, just before the call, were talking about our own cross-department communication and collaboration, and how that's just a goal that everyone should have all the time, right? There's so much that we have to learn from each other, and there's so many ways that we can help each other from our areas of expertise. I wanted to dig in a little bit more about measuring success. So how do you, for your events and also as a planning team, how are you evaluating what's going well and what people's needs are?
So that's a great question, evaluating success, because as a Chamber of Commerce, you can look at success in a variety of different ways. We actually started using a tool a year ago that kind of pushed us to really look at our events in a variety of different lights. It's not always about number of people in the door. Mm-hmm. Although certainly attendance is a metric that you're going to measure. You're going to measure, your financial metrics in terms of, is it bringing in sponsor dollars? Is it bringing in, is this event upside down in terms of budget, or is it a profitable event? But you have to look, as a Chamber of Commerce, you have to look past that. It's not just about number of members in the door. You have to look at how many of those are members of your organization and how many of those are folks we would call future members. Mm-hmm. So is this event drawing more people into the organization, introducing them to what we do that could then be converted into membership numbers, which is hard, so you have to track, okay, who's coming in and did they join within the following 3 months? That's another metric that we look at. We also always want to look at alignment with our purpose. In a Chamber of Commerce, there's always a temptation to try and become all things to all people, mm-hmm. Especially when we try to be responsive to our members. We want to make sure that our programming is aligned with our purposes. We help people build their network. We provide educational programming. We provide access to high-level individuals that folks might not otherwise have access to. And so we sort of put our, and not every event is going to give you all of those things.
Right.
So, but we try to look at each one through, red, yellow, green. Mm-hmm. How well are we meeting is this event meeting at least one of our purposes or two of our purposes? Or is this event not really meeting any of our purposes, but maybe it makes money? Right. So that might be, so it really has to be there as a wide set of metrics, but you have to have a defined idea of what do we do here, and right. Are we the best positioned organization to provide this type of programming? So we look at it from a lot of different ways, and I wish there was a cut and dry way to evaluate every event, but unfortunately there isn't. We're looking at 7 or 8 different factors with every single event.
Really quickly before we wind down the conversation, I wanted to make one more comment, which is a trend we're hearing in this event planner mini series is how purpose-driven folks are. And I'm wondering if you can comment a little bit more about that. Like, where does that come from? How do you foster that culture as an organization to be really focused on, what are we doing? Why are we doing this? that's hard work, right? On top of all the logistical stuff you have to handle. So could you talk a little bit more about that?
I think so much of it comes from leadership. It comes from board leadership and having a board of directors that is very clearly aligned in our purpose as an organization. That board leadership then trickles down to the CEO, who knows what exactly it is we do here. Mm-hmm. And then that trickles down to the staff as new ideas come in, as new programming comes in. Really, having that conversation as a team of, okay, why are we doing this? Mm-hmm. And, is this, we're doing 93 events. So if somebody comes to us and says, can you put this in? It really needs to be very carefully aligned if we're going to do that. So a lot of it just comes from some teamwork, some collaboration, but also it starts with having very clear direction from your leadership and, executing. They're calling the play. As a staff team, we're executing that play.
Gotcha. I love that. That's really useful insight. I appreciate you kind of expanding a little bit more there. Now, we always wrap up with just, a nice, like, if you could give 1 or 2 bits of advice to any event planner that's watching this. It might be someone that's been doing it for a long time, or it could be someone just starting out. Like, what's your kind of key piece of advice you would offer up from your experience?
I would say, so I've been doing events in one form or another for about 25 years. I would say 2 pieces of advice. Number 1 sounds incredibly inane. Stay organized. Stay organized, but in your way. If you are a physical paper person, have your physical papers. For every event, I have a binder with tabs upon tabs, because I need to physically be able to hold on to that binder in a day and have that at a glance. Other people, a Google Drive works for them, or, there's a tool in their CRM. Figure out what your thing is and own it. But I will say the other lesson that I learned very, very early in my career, and it's a phrase that we used to use, 25 years ago, always be ready to punt, because you never know when you are going to run up against a wall, and the best thing you can do is fall back and punt. So you have to be able to roll with that, identify creative solutions, without the, I can't believe that happened, and oh my goodness, it happened. Mm-hmm. We don't have time to talk about why it happened, how it happened. That all happens in the cold wash. Right now, in this moment, it's happened. Let's figure it out. And a good event planner can always figure out a solution.
That's so inspiring. And Nathan, I don't know if you caught that American football reference.
Yeah, I got it. Don't worry.
I have to pick on you. Gretchen, thank you so much for sharing your perspective, your expertise with us. I think there's some great tidbits in there for other event planners to be inspired by. And also some great stuff for us as, from the guidebook side of things. I just love getting into your shoes and figuring out what are the problems you're trying to solve, and how can we support you, as a tech provider. So I wanted to wrap things up, say thank you one more time, and just let everybody know we have maybe 1 or 2 episodes coming in our Event Planner mini-series. We hope you've loved it. And again, thanks, Gretchen, so much for being here.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, it was great to have you on. Thank you.